The first strange signals came on a Tuesday. At the UNSC monitoring station near Sacramento, Jack Porter was the only one who noticed the unusual pattern. The blips on his radar screen didn't match any known satellite or space debris trajectory. He called over his supervisor, Linda Gray. "Look at this movement pattern," Jack said, pointing at his screen. "It's making course corrections. Too precise for natural objects." Linda leaned closer, her eyes narrowing. "How many are there?" 7 large signatures and about 30 smaller ones. They're slowing down as they approach Mars' orbit. Within hours, every news channel worldwide showed the same images. Strange metallic ships unlike anything humans had built, moving in perfect formation toward Earth. The United Nations Security Council called an emergency meeting, and military forces worldwide went on high alert. Admiral Eric Lawson stood before the hastily assembled group of world leaders at UN headquarters in New York. His uniform was perfectly pressed, but dark circles under his eyes revealed he hadn't slept in days. "The objects are definitely artificial and powered," he explained. "We've attempted communication on all known frequencies with no response. Their technology appears to be far beyond our current capabilities." President Helen Rodriguez looked grim. "What are our defense options?" "Limited," Lawson admitted. "Our orbital platforms might slow them down, but based on their energy signatures, these vessels outclass anything we have." On the UNSC Valiant, orbiting 300 miles above Earth, Commander Olivia Bennett watched the approaching fleet on her view screen. Her ship was one of humanity's newest space vessels, built for exploration rather than combat. Now it formed part of Earth's thin defensive line. "All stations report ready, Commander," said Lieutenant Kevin Powell, her tactical officer. Olivia nodded, trying to project confidence she didn't feel. "Maintain position. Let's hope the diplomatic channels work." The alien fleet stopped just beyond the moon's orbit. For 3 days they remained silent despite continued attempts at communication. Then, without warning, they moved. "They're launching smaller craft," shouted Powell. "Hundreds of them." Olivia watched in horror as the alien fighters accelerated toward Earth's orbital defenses. "Battle stations, all ships, defensive formation Delta." Earth's small fleet moved to intercept, but the fight was painfully one-sided. The alien weapons cut through Earth's best shields like they weren't there. One by one, the orbital defense platforms went dark. The Valiant shuddered as enemy fire struck its port side. "Hull breach on decks 3 through 5, reported Powell. "Weapon systems offline." Olivia grabbed the ship-wide communication system. "All personnel, abandon ship, get to the escape pods." As her crew rushed to evacuate, Olivia stayed at her post, working frantically to send one last message. She encoded everything they had learned about the alien weapons and tactics and transmitted it to UNSC headquarters. As she finished, another blast rocked the ship, throwing her against the wall. With blood trickling from a cut on her forehead, she dragged herself to the last remaining escape pod. Through the viewport, she watched her ship break apart as her pod shot toward Earth. On the ground, things were just as chaotic. Alan Murphy sat at his communication station at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory in California, trying to make sense of strange signals being broadcast from multiple locations on Earth. "These aren't ours," he muttered to himself. "And they're not the aliens either." The signals were being sent on frequencies not used by any Earth government, aimed toward distant star systems. Before he could investigate further, the building shook with a massive explosion. Through the windows, he saw alien ships descending. "Over Los Angeles. Everyone get to the emergency bunkers," shouted his director. As people ran for safety, Alan downloaded the signal data to a portable drive and slipped it into his pocket. Something told him this information would be important. 3 days later, Alan found himself hiding in the basement of an abandoned grocery store with 7 other survivors. The aliens had established control over most major cities, using weapons that could disable electronics or target individuals with frightening precision. "We need to move at night," said a woman who had introduced herself as Natalie Patel. Her military bearing and quick decision-making had quickly made her the group's leader. "They have fewer patrols between midnight and dawn." "Move where?" asked an older man named Frank. "They're everywhere." "Not everywhere," Natalie said. There are resistance groups forming in less populated areas. I have contacts in the mountains about 40 miles east. Alan hesitated, then pulled out his drive. Before we go anywhere, I need to show you something. He connected the drive to a solar-powered laptop and showed them the signal data. These were being sent from Earth right when the aliens attacked, aimed at specific star systems. They're not in any format I recognize. Natalie studied the screen. Could they be some kind of warning system? Maybe, Alan said. But warning who? Their discussion was interrupted by the sound of heavy vehicles outside. Through a crack in the boarded windows, they saw people being loaded into alien transport ships. Labor collection, Natalie whispered. The aliens are taking people for work camps. That night, they slipped out of the city, avoiding alien patrols. As they traveled, they gathered more information. The aliens called themselves the Craxian Hegemony. They had declared Earth a new subject world in their expanding empire. Humanity was to provide resources and labor. After a week of moving only, at night, they reached the mountains and found Natalie's contacts. A growing resistance group using an old military bunker as their base. Inside, they met Colonel Ryan Weber, who had managed to escape when the aliens overwhelmed the nearby air force base. The situation is grim, Weber told them, pointing to a map marked with alien strongholds. They've established control centers in every major city. Our weapons barely damage their armor, and they have technology that can track electronic communications. What about the government? Frank asked. The military? What's left of both has gone underground, Weber said. The president and key officials were evacuated to hardened bunkers, but communication is difficult. We're essentially fighting blind. Alan showed Weber the signal data he'd saved. The colonel's expression changed as he examined it. Where did you get this? NASA JPL right before the attack, Alan explained. These signals were being sent from Earth to specific coordinates in deep space. Weber exchanged a look with Natalie. There are rumors, he said carefully. Old stories about secret space programs back in the 2030s and 40s. Projects that went beyond what the public knew about. You think these signals could be connected? Natalie asked. I don't know, Weber admitted. But if there's even a small chance that we have allies somewhere out there, we need to find out more about these transmissions. As they spoke, the bunker's perimeter alarm sounded. On the security monitors, they watched a squad of Craxian soldiers approaching through the forest. They found us, Weber said grimly, reaching for his weapon. Looks like we'll have to fight our way out. Natalie checked her rifle. Where do we go? Weber pointed to a tunnel entrance. There's an old facility about 5 miles deeper into the mountain. If these signals are what I think they might be, we might find answers there. As the first explosions shook the bunker doors, Alan realized that humanity's fate might depend on a secret he hadn't even known existed until now. The tunnel was dark and cold. Alan Murphy followed close behind Natalie Patel as they moved deeper into the mountain. Colonel Weber led the small group with a dim flashlight, careful not to use anything brighter that might attract attention. The sounds of the Craxian attack faded behind them. How much farther? Whispered Frank, breathing heavily from the long climb. Not far now, Weber said. The old maps show a research facility built into a natural cave system. It was abandoned in the official records around 2045. After another hour of careful movement, through the narrow passage they reached a large metal door. It looked untouched for decades with no visible control panel or handle. Now what? Alan asked. Weber ran his hands along the edge of the door until he found a small, almost invisible seam. He pressed it, revealing a hidden keypad covered in dust. Good thing they built these places to last, Weber said, entering a long code from memory. To everyone's surprise, the door responded with a low hum and slowly began to slide open. How did you know the code? Natalie asked suspiciously. My grandfather worked security for something called Project Diaspora. Before he died, he told me things most people would consider crazy talk. I never knew if I should believe him until now. They entered a vast chamber carved into the mountain. As they stepped inside, motion sensors triggered dim emergency lighting that revealed rows of old computer terminals and wall-sized screens. This place has been waiting, Weber said. It has its own power source, probably geothermal. Alan moved to one of the terminals and wiped away years of dust. To his amazement, it powered on immediately. The system is still working. The screens came to life, showing what appeared to be star maps and spacecraft designs unlike anything publicly known. As Alan searched through the files, the others explored the facility, finding storage rooms, living quarters, and what looked like a small mission control center. "Look at this," called Natalie from across the room. She stood before a large wall, display showing Earth and several distant star systems, connected by lines. Each connection was labeled with a name: Nova, Haven, Olympus, Avalon, New Horizon, Elysium, and Valhalla. Alan joined her, scrolling through the information. These are colonies, human colonies on other planets. "That's impossible," Frank said. "We barely made it to Mars." "Officially," Weber corrected. "But my grandfather talked about breakthrough technology in the 2030s. Something that changed everything but was kept secret." Alan's fingers flew across the keyboard, bringing up more files. According to this, in 2041, a scientist named Dr. Laura Garner developed a new propulsion system that allowed for faster-than-light travel. But instead of announcing it, several world governments classified the discovery. "Why would they hide something like that?" Natalie asked. Alan continued reading. They were afraid, not just of how it would change power structures on Earth, but of what might be out there. They decided humanity needed a backup plan. The files revealed that Project Diaspora had secretly sent ships to 7 promising star systems between 2045 and 2060. Each colony was designed to be self-sufficient, with different specializations and focuses. Communication was minimal to maintain secrecy, with scheduled check-ins every few years. "The last official contact was 3 years ago," Alan said. "All colonies reported successful establishment and growth. Total population across all colonies was estimated at over 2 million humans." Weber nodded slowly. "My grandfather said they sent the best and brightest. Scientists, engineers, doctors, soldiers. People who could build a new civilization if Earth ever faced extinction. And now we're facing exactly that," Natalie said. "Those signals I found, they must have been automated distress calls to the colonies when the Craxians attacked." A new hope began to grow among the group. If humanity had colonies out there, perhaps Earth wasn't as alone as the Craxians thought. Their planning was interrupted when one of the screens suddenly flickered and changed. A face appeared. A man in what looked like a military uniform, but with insignia none of them recognized. "This is General Peter Cole of Nova Colony Defense Force. If you're receiving this, you've accessed a diaspora facility. We've detected the emergency beacon. Message received, Earth. Help is coming." The message ended as quickly as it had appeared. The group stared at each other in stunned silence. "They're coming back," Alan whispered. "But will they be in time?" Over. The next few weeks, they converted the hidden facility into their new base of operations. More resistance fighters joined them as word spread through secure channels. The Craxians continued their systematic control of Earth's resources and population, seemingly unaware of any potential threat from beyond the solar system. Olivia Bennett, who had survived her escape pod's landing, was brought to the mountain facility after resistance fighters found her hiding in rural farmland. Her knowledge of space combat and UNSC protocols proved invaluable. "The Craxians have established orbital control points at key positions," she explained, marking locations on a holographic display. "They're stripping our moon and Mars of resources while setting up processing centers on Earth." "How long before they completely strip the planet?" Natalie asked. "Based on their current rate, years, maybe decades. They seem to be settling in for a long occupation." Alan had been monitoring space activity using the facility's advanced sensors, far more powerful than anything he'd had access to at NASA. "There's something else. The Craxians keep sending small scout ships to the outer solar system. They seem concerned about something out there." One evening, as they discussed plans for disrupting a Craxian supply convoy, their communication system detected an encrypted transmission on a frequency used only by Project Diaspora. Alan scrambled to decode it, "It's from the Colonies," he said, excitement in his voice. "Multiple ships have entered the outer solar system. They're using some kind of stealth technology to avoid Craxian sensors." The message was brief but clear. Operation Homecoming initiated. Phase 1 complete. Advance scouts in position. Hold positions and prepare for coordinated action in 30 days. Olivia studied the tactical information included in the transmission. "These ship designs, they're far beyond what we had when I was with UNSC. The Colonies have been busy." 30 days, Weber said thoughtfully. "We need to prepare Earth's resistance groups for whatever they're planning." They spent the following week sending coded messages to other resistance cells, organizing them for coordinated strikes when the time came. Meanwhile, Alan and Olivia worked to understand the colonial fleet's capabilities based on the limited information they received. According to these specs, each colony developed different technologies, Alan explained. Nova focused on energy weapons. Haven specialized in stealth systems. Together, they might actually have a chance against Craxian technology. 28 days after the first message, their sensors detected unusual energy readings near Jupiter. The Craxian patrols in the area suddenly went silent. "It's starting," Olivia said, watching the data stream in. "The Colonies are making their move." That night, as they prepared for what might be humanity's last stand or first step toward liberation, a final message came through. "To all Earth resistance forces, this is Admiral Gregory Wallace of the United Colonial Fleet. The counterattack begins at dawn. Stand ready. Humanity fights back tomorrow." The first signs of battle lit up the night sky over North America. People stepped out of their homes, breaking curfew to stare upward as bright flashes appeared among the stars. The Craxian patrols that normally punished such gatherings were nowhere to be seen. In the mountain facility, Alan Murphy watched the sensor displays with growing excitement. "The colonial forces are engaging Craxian ships near Mars orbit," he announced to the crowded command center. Olivia Bennett studied the battle patterns with professional interest. "Look at their formation. The colonial ships are using coordinated attacks, targeting Craxian command and control systems first." Colonel Weber turned to the gathered resistance leaders. "This is what we've been waiting for. While the Craxians are distracted in orbit, we strike their ground bases." Natalie Patel checked her weapon. "My team is ready to hit the processing center in Boulder." Teams of fighters moved out as planned, targeting Craxian facilities across the region. For the first time since the invasion, the aliens seemed caught, off guard, their usual quick response hampered by communication problems. High above Earth, the space battle grew more intense. The colonial fleet, emerging from stealth, revealed ships of designs never seen before. They moved with impossible speed and precision, their weapons cutting through Craxian shields. Leading the attack was the Nova Colony flagship, Defiance. On its bridge, Admiral Gregory Wallace directed the battle with calm efficiency. At 55, Wallace had been just a child when his parents joined the original colonization mission. Now he was returning to the homeworld he barely remembered. "Avalon, Squadron, press the attack on their left flank," he ordered. "Haven ships, maintain stealth and target their rear communications array." His second-in-command, Captain Diana Foster, pointed to new contacts on their display. "Sir, the Craxians are bringing reinforcements from their lunar base." Wallace nodded calmly. "Right on schedule. Signal General Samantha Wright to begin Phase 2. Near the moon, a second colonial fleet suddenly appeared, dropping their stealth fields. Their ships, bearing the emblem of Olympus Colony, launched swarms of advanced drones that overwhelmed the Craxian lunar defenses. General Wright's voice came over the command channel. "Lunar base targeted. Beginning assault now." On Earth, the resistance fighters were making unexpected progress. The Craxians seemed confused, their normal coordination failing as the colonial forces disrupted their communications. Natalie's team successfully planted explosives at the Boulder Processing Center. As they withdrew to safe distance, the facility erupted in flames. Similar reports came in from resistance cells across the continent. In the mountain base, Alan monitored the communications. "The pattern is the same everywhere. The Craxians can't coordinate their defenses." Weber nodded. The colonies must be using some kind of jamming technology. A new alert sounded on their system. Alan checked the incoming signal. We're receiving a tight beam transmission from the Defiance. Admiral Wallace wants to speak with our command. The main screen activated, showing a stern-faced man in a dark blue uniform. This is Admiral Wallace. Am I speaking with Earth Resistance? Command? Weber stepped forward. Colonel Ryan Weber, sir, acting commander of the Mountain West Resistance. Wallace nodded. Colonel, we're making good progress in orbit, but we need your help with ground operations. The Craxians have a primary command center in what used to be Denver. Our intelligence suggests it coordinates all their North American operations. We know the facility, Weber said. It's heavily guarded. We've never had enough firepower to approach it. You do now, Wallace replied. We're sending down support teams with advanced weapons. Rendezvous coordinates are being transmitted. Be ready to move in 6 hours. As promised, colonial dropships landed in a remote valley near the facility. The craft were sleek and silent, using technology that rendered them nearly invisible to Craxian sensors. From the lead ship emerged soldiers in advanced combat suits, led by a tall woman with short gray hair and intense eyes. She approached Weber and extended her hand. General Samantha Wright, Olympus Colony Defense Force. These are my best troops, all born and trained off-world. The colonial soldiers distributed weapons to the resistance fighters, lightweight rifles with strange power cells. Pulse rifles, explained one soldier, designed specifically to disrupt Craxian shield technology. 1 shot will drop their personal protection, 2 will put them down for good. As they prepared for the assault, General Wright gathered them for a briefing. The Craxians have never faced a serious defeat. Their entire strategy relies on overwhelming force and the belief that their technology is superior. Today, we prove them wrong. The combined Earth resistance and colonial forces moved toward Denver under cover of night. The city, once a vibrant metropolis, now served as the central Craxian administration zone for the region. Massive alien structures towered over the remaining human buildings. Olivia studied the approaching complex through high-powered binoculars. Heavy guard presence, at least 30 Craxian soldiers at the main entrance alone. Wright nodded. As expected, but they won't be looking up. On her signal, small flying devices deployed from the colonial soldiers' packs. These drones, barely visible even at close range, flew toward the Craxian facility and attached themselves to specific points on the walls and roof. EMP charges, Wright explained. When they detonate, they'll knock out Craxian power systems for approximately 3 minutes. That's our window. At precisely midnight, the charges activated. The lights throughout the alien complex flickered and died. Immediately, Wright's team moved forward, their weapons ready. The Craxians, used to technological superiority, seemed genuinely confused by the sudden failure of their systems. The colonial soldiers moved with practiced precision, taking down guards with minimal noise. Natalie and her resistance fighters followed, still amazed by the colonists' efficiency. They've been preparing for this for years, she whispered to Ku. Alan. Inside the complex, they moved quickly toward the central control room. Colonial tech specialists worked to download data from Craxian systems, while Wright's soldiers secured each section. In the main command center, they found something unexpected, a Craxian of higher rank than any they had seen before. Unlike the soldiers, this one wore ornate armor with intricate symbols. A sub-commander, Wright said, studying the alien. Regional authority. This is a bigger catch than we expected. The Craxian looked at the humans with what might have been shock. Impossible, it said in halting English. Your kind has no off-world presence. Our surveys confirm this. Wright stepped closer. Your surveys were incomplete. Humanity spread to the stars long before you arrived. The colonies send their regards. Before they could secure the alien leader, alarms began to sound throughout the facility. Backup systems coming online, one of the tech specialists warned. We need to move. With the downloaded data and their captured high-value prisoner, the strike force withdrew from the facility. Colonial dropships appeared overhead, laying down covering fire as they extracted the teams. As they flew back to the mountain base, Alan examined the stolen data on a portable terminal. "This is incredible. We have their entire Earth occupation. Strategy, communication codes, everything." Weber turned to General Wright. "What happens now?" The general's expression was grim but determined. "Now the real fight begins. The Craxians will call for reinforcements from their home systems. This was just the opening move in a longer war." In orbit, Admiral Wallace watched as his forces secured control of Earth's immediate space. The Craxians were retreating to defensive positions, regrouping for a counterattack. "Send word to all colonies," he ordered. "Phase 1 complete. Begin Phase 2. It's time to show the Craxians what humanity is truly capable of." 2 weeks after the attack on the Denver Command Center, the mountain facility had transformed. Colonial engineers had upgraded the old systems with new technology, and the once abandoned base now buzzed with activity. Resistance fighters trained, alongside colonial soldiers, learning to use the advanced weapons. In the main conference room, Admiral Wallace addressed the assembled leadership. Holographic displays showed the positions of both human and Craxian forces throughout the solar system. "The good news is we've secured Earth orbit and established control over key points in the solar system," Wallace explained. "The bad news is exactly what we expected. The Craxians have called for reinforcements." General Wright pointed to the outer system display. "Our long-range sensors have detected a large Craxian fleet approaching. They'll reach our solar system in approximately 10 days. Colonel Weber frowned. "How many ships?" "Over 200, Wright replied. 3 times what they brought for the initial invasion." Natalie Patel leaned forward. "Can we defeat that many?" Admiral Wallace nodded confidently. "With the right strategy, yes. The Craxians rely on overwhelming force and technological superiority. But thanks to our captured subcommander, we now understand their tactical weaknesses." The Craxian prisoner had been surprisingly willing to talk after the colonial interrogation experts used specialized techniques. They learned that the hegemony had never faced a serious military defeat, and their commanders were not prepared for adaptive enemies. Alan Murphy had been working with colonial tech specialists to analyze the aliens' information. "According to what we've learned, the Craxian command structure is rigid. Lower-ranking ships cannot act without direct orders. If we can disrupt their communication, we can create chaos in their fleet." "Exactly," Wallace agreed. "And that's where Haven Colonies technology comes in." He gestured to a woman who had been quiet until now. "Commander Lily Ward leads Haven's Electronic Warfare Division. Her team has developed systems specifically designed to counter Craxian communication methods." Commander Ward stepped forward. "The Craxians use quantum-entangled pairs for instantaneous communication across vast distances. It's normally impossible to intercept or jam. But we found a way to introduce noise into their system, essentially scrambling their messages." Olivia Bennett studied the technical specifications with growing excitement. "This could work. Without clear commands, their fleet formations would fall apart." The planning continued for hours, with each colony representative sharing their specialized knowledge. Nova Colony would lead the direct assault with their superior energy weapons. Olympus would deploy drone swarms to overwhelm Craxian point defenses. Avalon's medical ships would provide support and rescue operations. New Horizons' fastest vessels would run interference and disruption. Elysium and Valhalla would protect Earth from any forces that broke through. As the meeting concluded, Wallace made one final announcement. "There's one more asset we haven't discussed, the Excalibur." He activated a new hologram showing a massive ship unlike any other in the colonial fleet. This is the first true warship built cooperatively by all 7 colonies. It carries weapons and defensive systems from each world, integrated into one platform. It's been in development for 15 years, ever since our long-range scouts first detected Craxian expansion in our direction. The room fell silent as they studied the imposing vessel. Weber whistled softly. "You've been expecting this conflict all along." "We hoped it wouldn't come," Wallace admitted. "But the colonies have always known Earth might need us someday. We prepared accordingly." Over the next week, resistance forces worldwide stepped up their attacks on Craxian ground installations. With colonial weapons and support, they liberated several small cities and established free zones. For the first time since the invasion, humans began to reclaim pieces of their homeworld. In what had once been Chicago, Natalie led a mixed team of resistance fighters and colonial soldiers to free a labor camp. The operation went smoothly, with the Craxian guards overwhelmed by the combined force. As they helped the freed prisoners to evacuation transports, an older man approached Natalie. "I was beginning to think we'd never see another free day," he said, his voice rough from months of harsh conditions. "How bad was it?" Natalie asked. "They worked people until they dropped," he replied. "No rest, barely any food. They're stripping everything they can from Earth. Minerals, metals, water, even biological samples. This pattern was reported from other liberated camps as well. The Craxians seemed to be accelerating their resource extraction, as if rushing to collect as much as possible before they lost control." Alan, analyzing the reports at the mountain base, noticed the pattern. They're not just taking random resources. They're focusing on things that are rare in their own systems. Specific metals, compounds, even certain plant and animal species. "Makes sense," Weber said. "They're an expansionist empire. They survive by taking what they need from conquered worlds." 3 days before the Craxian reinforcements were due to arrive, Admiral Wallace called all ships to their assigned positions. The Excalibur took station at the center of the colonial formation, its massive hull gleaming in the sunlight. On the ground, final preparations were made. Key resistance leaders, including Weber, Natalie, and Alan, were brought aboard Colonial ships to coordinate the ground campaign. Olivia Bennett was assigned to the Defiance as liaison between Earth forces and the Colonial fleet. As they gathered on the bridge, Wallace addressed them formally. "For decades, the colonies have developed in isolation, growing stronger while remembering our origins. Today, we fight not just for Earth, but for all humanity." The Craxians thought they found an isolated, primitive world ripe for conquest. Instead, they awoke a scattered but united species. The Admiral turned to the main view screen, where the first signs of the approaching Craxian fleet were becoming visible, hundreds of ships emerging from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the solar system. "All ships battle stations," Wallace ordered calmly. "Operation Homecoming, final phase. Let's show the Craxians what happens when they threaten humanity." The Colonial fleet moved into position, each ship group forming up according to their specialized role. As the Craxian armada approached Jupiter's orbit, Haven Colony's electronic warfare ships activated their jamming systems. Almost immediately, the tight Craxian formation began to waver. Ships slowed or changed course as conflicting orders reached their commanders. The carefully coordinated invasion force started to fragment into smaller, more manageable groups. "It's working," Olivia said, watching the tactical display. "Their formation is breaking down." Admiral Wallace nodded with grim satisfaction. "Now for the hard part. All ships engage as planned. The real battle for Earth begins now." The Colonial fleet surged forward, weapons charging as they moved to meet the disorganized Craxian forces. Across Earth, resistance fighters watched the skies, knowing that the next few hours would determine humanity's fate. After months of occupation, the final fight for freedom had begun,